To conclude this opening session of the FIC 2023, I have the pleasure of welcoming on stage Her Excellency Nathalie Jaarsma, Dutch Ambassador at Large for Security Policy and Cyber. Welcome, Nathalie. Let me give you this mic.
Thank you so much, Adrian. And good evening, everybody.
Little techno, it works perfectly, beautiful. Listen, it's a pleasure and it's quite natural to have you here at the FIC for this opening plenary session, given the partnership between the FIC here in France and the One Conference in the Netherlands. Guillaume Tissier mentioned it in his introductory comments. Netherlands has a strong presence at the FIC this year, and you came with a large delegation. Could you shed some light on the rationale for this partnership and tell us more about the cooperation between Netherlands and France?
Yeah, thank you, Adrian, and thank you for having me, and thanks to the organizers for having me. It has been a fantastic day already. Well, the philosophy behind this partnership is that we thought it would be good to foster really synergies between the two big cybersecurity conferences in Europe, FIC here in Lille, and the One Conference in The Hague. And this Franco-Dutch rapprochement seemed like a natural path for sort of having really essential discussions about accelerating EU efforts on digital sovereignty, the openness, and accelerating innovation, really strengthening the ties within Europe and using the partnership. So we have actually seen since 2021 that our industries and our scientists, scholars have been collaborating through these partnerships more and more, and we like to see more. Then also the Paris-The Hague bridge is stronger and becoming stronger, and I like to mention that next week we will have the state visit of President Macron to the Netherlands, and ahead of this visit here at FIC we have a delegation of more than 45 delegates from industry, science, government, and so this multi-stakeholder group is really fantastic. And I think, well, as you know, cyber is teamwork, so I'm especially really grateful that we're here with this team. And for those who have not seen our pavilion yet, it is H17, so you're welcome to have a look, have a chat. We have quite interesting organizations there. And also to mention the One Conference, this is organized this year on the 3rd and the 4th of October in The Hague. So you're very welcome.
We've come a long way from a single unifying internet as it was imagined at inception. It's become fragmented and it's become critical for our economies and our hyper-connected societies. Has the time come now, according to you, for implementing international rules for responsible state behavior in cyber?
Yeah, thank you. And we actually do have these international rules. And we have heard the insights from what the EU is doing. We have heard insights from NATO. And I like to talk a little bit about what the UN is doing, because these are indeed worldwide rules that we have agreed to. In fact, all nations around the world have created a framework for responsible state behavior, and basically it stipulates that international law in its entirety applies also in cyber. And in addition to that, because cyber is of course slightly different than the normal physical world, we have also developed 11 norms. And these 11 norms, for example, are about the critical infrastructure. One state should not attack the critical infrastructure of another state. there's also another example that states are actually responsible. They need to ensure the integrity of the supply chain and prevent the use of harmful hidden functions. So it's these kind of norms. And, but it's all great to have a normative framework, but what is really missing is the implementation. And of course, worldwide implementation, because as we have heard other speakers mention that, of course, we are as strong as the weakest link. So we must ensure that all states around the world are actually capable of implementing these norms. And for this particular reason, we were actually very, very happy as the Netherlands that France and Egypt took the initiative to form a framework for the implementation of this normative framework, and this is called the Program of Action. And this is now really, we need to do this, and we believe that more capacity building is needed to actually ensure the implementation. So capacity building from governments, from NGOs, but also from the private sector. And there are already existing capacity building platforms, like, for example, EU's Cyber Direct and the multi-stakeholder organization, the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise. So really, I mean, we're here with a big crowd at FIC. So if you think that your organization has something to offer on cybersecurity, and I believe everybody thinks that, please have a look at these initiatives and see whether you would like to join them. Please really seriously consider that.
Implementation is one thing, but accountability is another. What can Europe and EU or European countries do to promote accountability and ensure the respect of the rules or norms in the cyber environment?
Yeah, thanks. Accountability, of course, has different aspects. I mean, there's accountability around normal legislation and like the security of software and hardware. But what we're talking about here is accountability of states. There we have the normative framework that I just mentioned, the UN normative framework for responsible state behavior as the yardstick to measure responsible and non-responsible behavior. What do we do if states are not behaving in a responsible way? Well, as the EU, we have developed the Cyber Diplomacy Toolbox, and the Commissioner just talked about that, referred to it. The Diplomacy Toolbox has different tools in it, if you will, diplomatic tools, and the most friendly way to react is to reach out to a country where a malicious activity comes from and ask for clarification and for some sort of measure. But we can go all the way up to calling out certain behavior, so that can impose costs, like reputational costs, and all the way up to sanctions. And we believe that the Cyber Diplomacy Toolbox needs to be amended, improved, so we have more tools at our disposal. And so therefore we also believe that we need to make a stronger bridge with the European Commission and look at the tools that we have at our disposal there. And for example, one could think about pausing a certain dialogue with a country that creates clearly reputational costs. But also when we talk about accountability, of course, it is also very much needed that we have a clear visibility of what is going on. And there we see that more and more private organizations, commercial organizations, NGOs, are coming out with explanations about the threat landscape. And I think that is really essential. It creates greater awareness in our societies, and that is a very important element. But it is also needed if we want to adopt sanctions, we need to do that based on open information. So whenever a threat is being described, perhaps even sometimes even attributing it to certain actors, it is really needed for governments if they want to move into the direction of sanctions. So we really welcome that if it is done in a responsible way. So please, this is an encouragement.
Well, Nathalie, thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for your presence and for this cooperation between the FIC and the One Conference. I think now's the time to come to an end of this plenary session. Thank you very much for your presence and for your words.